And welcome back, everybody, to All Hang Up and Listen. Brought to you, of course, by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room, with over 300 beers to choose from at 7 different Western locations. If you need to grab a beer, whether you're celebrating a Sabres win, venting after a Sabres loss, get over to Fatty Beer. Let them know we sent you from Two Goalies, One Mike. One of my favorites. It will always be the F Yeah Mango Wheat. You can never, ever go wrong. And of course, Extreme Discount Mattress, Western New York's finest selection of mattresses and adjustable beds, featuring the Cool Gel Memory Foam, two-sided mattress, Tele-Latex, organic mattress, Chatham & Wells, and of course, Scotland Living, all for 1/3 to 1/2 the supposed sale prices anywhere. So stop in at any of their 7 locations across Western New York, or check out their website, extrememattress.com. That is Extreme with an X. If you're looking for more savings, check out their new closeout center at 1625 Walden Avenue in Cheektowaga.
Duane, are you there?
Oh, there we are. Okay. I thought we lost you for a second. Were you
Was it me?
everybody?
Was it me? I thought I lost you.
It might have been me. We're already off to a rocky start. But we do have a special guest in who, former Sabres goaltender. He does a lot of work with the Daily Faceoff. Friend of a friend of the program, Johnny Lazarus. Couple clicks for him for helping set this up. Couldn't appreciate it more. We're going to bring in just here momentarily Carter Hutton, again, former Sabres goalie. Huts, thanks for hopping in with us.
No problem, boys. What's going on, man? That was excited to be on here. Excited to be part of the program, my man. Obviously, I wish it was in better condition here after a tough loss, but they're playing good, man. They're playing real well. They're the better team for most of that game from what I watched.
I agree. Would you agree that even though they did score on the power play, that was probably a big sticking point for me, at least, as part of the reason why they lost?
Yeah, I think so. They had a lot of chances, in that stretch, I thought, where they were the better team. I thought physically early, the first 5 minutes of that game, I thought they set the tone early. I thought Josh Dolan was running around making hits. And then there was late in the first period, Rasmus Dahlin makes a big body check right at the bench, and it kind of set the tone for and then they take a penalty. And it just felt like they couldn't keep it moving when they had it going at times. And then just a couple plays where it's like, just kind of watching the goals, like the one in front where, Lyon thinks the puck's going to go back door. Caulfield makes a good tip. And then on that retrieval on the rim where Lyon's not able to stop the puck behind the net, and I think Byram thinks he's going to get it, so he ends up down low, and Caulfield just gets left alone out front. Like, very controllable things, and it's just one of those nights where I thought Dobish played really well as well, so not to underestimate what he did tonight, but it's a good-looking hockey team now.
I was going to say about Dobish, what did you think of his game tonight specifically, and also, do you think he's the type of goalie that could be their starter in the playoffs? Because between their 3 goalies, they just fired their goalie coach. I think all of them haven't played particularly well. Do you think he's the type of guy that could get the nod for them in April?
I don't know if he's going to be the guy come playoff time, to be totally honest with you. Like, I thought tonight he settled in. Like, sometimes he's so aggressive, like he chases the play and comes charging out of the net, and then the puck hits him and it becomes kind of chaos. That's something that I'm very used to in my playing days. And you gotta, you live and die by it too as well. But I just think sometimes when you hear him talk, and the sensitivity, he was 6-0, and I think he lost his first game in overtime, and he was almost in tears to the media. We're you're going to try to carry the Montreal Canadiens through a playoff run in that city with that kind of mindset as a young guy. That's a lot to weigh on him. And then you even look at what Sam Montembeault has dealt with, where last year he was arguably their MVP, and this year he's been non-existent. So I think there is I just don't know if those are the guys going to carry you to the promised land yet in Montreal, but the future looks bright. Their structure of contracts and young talent, it feels like the Atlantic Division is switched now. It's like Buffalo's coming, Montreal's coming. I just watched Toronto and Vancouver overtime. There was exciting, but Toronto's headed in the wrong direction. Florida's headed in the wrong direction. It feels like it's a passing of the guard in a sense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I didn't realize that, after the 6-0 start, he got emotional. And then Montreal is such a tough place when it comes to the media, right? Like, they consider hockey, like Montreal, one of the, like, if not Toronto, like the Mecca in Canada when it comes to hockey. And just to get emotional in a post game after a regular season loss. I mean, to your point, I don't know if you have, I guess I don't want to use the words, maybe for lack of a better way of saying it, like mental stability to handle the pressure of a playoff round if you're Dubish. So I kind of agree with you there.
Yeah, it is hard, right? It comes with experience, right? It comes with time. It comes with understanding how to like compartmentalize that side of the game too, right? Like you got to leave it as it is. And I felt like I dealt with that during my career in Buffalo when things weren't good too. And you come out to see like family and friends and like treat you with white gloves, and you're like, you have to move on from it. It is what it is, right? It becomes a job in a sense, and not that you don't care, not that you pour your whole heart into it, but like when it's weighing on you and you're leaving the rink and it consumes you 24/7, it honestly just eats away at you.
What do you think of, obviously, Alex Lyon just lost for the first time in what seems like 3 months. I think it was 10 games in a row, franchise record. What do you think of his game this season, and why is he the type of goalie? Why is he the guy that has finally caught something here in Buffalo that theoretically could be the guy that helps break this streak that leads the Sabres to the playoffs for the first time in 15 seasons?
Well, I think he's been through it too, which is important, right? Like, he's played for other teams. He's been in other tough situations too. And the one that obviously stands out for me is that run in Florida when they first made it to the Stanley Cup, the year they didn't win and they lost to Vegas. Like, he was the guy down the stretch. Like, he was so good during that run and pushing that team over the top. So he's been in these tough experiences where he had to carry the mail for a while, right? And I think you see it a lot, right, in the NHL, where it's like there's guys that can only play when they have like support, right? And then all of a sudden when you have to be the guy, it's really true. It's kind of how I cut my teeth, right? I played with Pecorine, where it was like majority of the nights I was just making sure his coffee was warm in between periods, and I was hanging out, and I could look on the schedule and see when I was going to play. But then when he would get hurt and I'd get a chance to play, I'd play well. And then all of a sudden you become more established. And I think Alex Lyon is that guy, in the sense of like, he's never going to be the guy that is just that number one star by any means in that upper echelon of NHL goalie. But I also feel like he has so much value organizationally because he's a guy that's not going to undermine, UPL still has a really high ceiling, right? Going to keep growing. But Alex Lyon can be in their locker room guy. And then something happens in this three-headed goalie monster you have in Buffalo, and he can carry the mail, right? UPL's out again now, and he's back and he's winning games. And I think that's so important to have that safety net. Like, how many teams do we look at? Like, look, even in Winnipeg this year, like Comrie was good when Hellebuyck's healthy. Hellebuyck gets hurt, Comrie can't get the job done. Man, there's a lot of value in that, especially in the NHL when it's a compressed schedule.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Comrie also got another former Sabres goaltender. I guess to actually, Connor, do you have something else? I thought you.
Yeah, I was going to ask eventually, but you brought it up, that three-headed goalie monster that you referenced. I think it's been a huge talking point amongst the Sabres fan base for a while now, and I think a lot of fans have been somewhat displeased with it, but at the end of the day, it's come in handy recently with all of these injuries, not only to Ellis, but to Lyon and UPL as well, and I think it's benefited them in the sense that they've had a backup plan. How do you think that's affected each of their psyches with three guys in the room, especially after they traded for Ellis? Is this something that is natural? Do you think that it's potentially even helped them this season?
I think it's helped them. Truthfully, I think it has. I think why it's helped them is because you have two of the three you don't really need to like give tons of TLC to, in my personal opinion, right? Colton Ellis is just happy to be in the NHL. He's happy to have a chance. He's happy to have a seat at the table. And I've been in that situation before where like UPL, maybe he's a good kid. And I guess you can't say kid anymore. I'm used to him when he was first coming up and I was there. But like, he's a guy that wants to be the guy, right? He wants to improve. So him, you're going to have to treat a little bit different, where like Alex Lyon like knows who he is at this point in his career. So I feel like that eliminates a lot of pressure in the situation, like the being on who the guys are. Like for Alex Lyon at 33 years old, he's really not going to get any better than he is now in a sense, right? So he's happy, he's playing, he's getting a good situation. It's more about like reps. And that's where it gets tricky. The only thing good I think in this situation when I look at this season is with this compressed schedule and the amount of injuries and the amount of stuff going on, like you kind of have to have three goalies. So it is understanding, and they've all had a chance to be the guy and have a little run and compete. So it is good. And I think as management, like Jarmo Kekalainen coming into the season, obviously not as a general manager, is a really good problem to have. Because you look at a lot of teams that don't have goalie depth, they're not in the same situation as Sabres because they're probably out of the playoffs now.
Yeah. And you have another guy, obviously, down in Rochester, that both me and Hurls really appreciate as smaller goalies. And Devin Levi, who, is still, he's having a good season. Maybe not as good as the previous two, given the fact that roster has been pretty depleted, but a guy who's probably just like scratching his teeth, just waiting for an opportunity to come up to Buffalo.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think that's probably where the three-headed monster screws a guy in Devin Levi. I think the three in the NHL, it's okay because the two are, happy with where they're at probably in their career and trying to grow. And I think Colton Ellis is this unknown guy, and I still don't really think what his potential is at the NHL level. But now if I'm looking at Buffalo and you want to start talking about like the future and where they go, I think Devin Levi is either going to be a piece that gets moved, right? And to try to make this team better, or it's UPL, or like wherever you feel this thing's going. Now you have a couple assets where maybe you can bring somebody in that adds a little bit of depth to your team to try to make a push here in the playoffs and be better in the future.
One more goalie specific question for you away from the Sabres. The Olympics coming up couple weeks here. I think USA's biggest strength is their goaltending, but I think that was kind of predicated on the fact that Connor Hellebuyck was the best goalie in the NHL for 2 to 3 years straight. Obviously, in the big lights, the biggest moments, he hasn't necessarily performed at his best. Jake Ottinger's obviously had a pretty good season, and he has the pedigree. Who do you think starts for Team USA in Milan in the biggest games once they inevitably, hopefully, get to the medal round?
I don't know if it's like anybody's job yet, because it is a really good question, right? I think if we're sitting at this question 6 months ago, it's like, well, it's Connor Hellebuyck's job to lose. And I think sitting here now, it's like, I don't think he's lost the job, but he's left the door open enough that if he doesn't perform immediately, then you're going to see Ottinger or you're going to see Swayman get a game. And potentially it's one of those ones where, if you get a tough draw in USA and he doesn't play well, then you're going to probably get another game for one of those other guys. And if they really play well, I think it leaves the door open. So sitting here right now, I still think it's Hellebuyck's job, but I think if he's got a short leash when it comes to it now, compared to how it would have been, post Four Nations and coming into this season.
I couldn't agree with you more too. There's so much competition there for Team USA at the goaltending position. It's actually incredible. And then you kind of look at, like, obviously you have big game Bennington, right? Who could honestly, for whatever reason, in those big moments, especially in the international change, he seems to, kick it up to a different gear. But I think that could possibly be the Achilles heel of Team Canada in the Olympics this year. Yeah,
it sure feels like it, right? And, we covered an article this week on our show on Daily Faceoff from John Marowitz with a score about just where Canadian goaltending's at and like why it's been such a setback. And again, not really knowing if it's not cyclical, right? Because we've had so many great goalies in Canada as well, right? We just finished Carey Price, Martin Brodeur. We can go through the names, right? Where, just at the grassroots level, it seems like USA and even per se, like numbers wise, Canada's still producing a lot of goalies in the NHL. I think this year we have 24 Canadians and 23 Americans who kind of dominate the field, where Russia has 10. And you can make an argument that 4 of those Russians are like the upper echelon of goalies in the NHL, right? So it just goes to show you that there is lack of superstardom in Canada. But that being said, in these one-game showdowns, any goalie at the NHL level can steal a game, be a difference maker. It's different if we were setting up for an 82-game season. I'd be like, I'd take any guy from the United States over any Canadian goalie. But one-game showdown, and you got that kind of team in front of you, anything goes.
I'm sorry, Curls. Just one last thing. Like Team Russia, you brought that up. Like, who would even start if Russia was in the Olympics this year? Who even starts? Who gets cut between Sorokin, Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, and Bob?
I know,
Who
it's
doesn't
crazy.
make that team?
I would think Bob gets cut, right?
I know Bob would probably be the odd guy out. I guess it is, but again, like one game showdown, you're like they're coming off the 2-time Stanley Cup champion back to like it's wild to think you could probably take all 4 Russian goalies and say that they could start for USA, Canada, Sweden, and Finland across the board. If you spread them out across different countries, that's how solid they are and how much depth they have. So that's a coin flip. And it is a shame that we don't get to see them compete in the world stage, because it would be an awesome addition to this tournament.
So Canada's really interesting to me because you look at Logan Thompson, obviously doesn't have the same international experience that Bennington has, but he has some of the best advanced stats in the NHL in terms of goals saved above expected. Obviously, goals against, save percentage. But then you see Bennington in the Olympics, in the Stanley Cup. He hasn't played in the Olympics yet because it's been so long. But who do you choose if you're Team Canada? Is it going to be Logan Thompson? I mean, obviously Darcy Kemper's there, but does Bennington get those games, do you think?
Yeah, I think it is similar to a Hellebuck situation, but more favored toward Logan Thompson at this point, in my personal opinion. I think Bennington has played his way out of the starter's crease, but he's there based on merit and based on the fact that he's been great in one-game showdowns. My concern as a Canadian fan and just like an analyst of it, it would be the fact that like Logan Thompson is going to be playing in a different situation. So I feel like in the Olympics past, when Carey Price would play and the team was so good, it was like, well, you just need to make a save here or there. I think those days have come and gone. Like when we talk about parity, we talk about like, you're going to have to be a difference maker. Like Carey Price during I think it was Sochi, like he was good, but he'd get like 18 shots a game, make one or two big saves, where I feel like the parity across the league with Sweden, Finland, USA, obviously, the firepower they have, it's not going to be such as a defensive game. It's going to be tightly checked, of course, but I think you're going to have to be more of an impact player. So I do like Logan Thompson in that case, just because he's like used to seeing that sort of game. Where when you talk about Kemper, I think he would have benefited from the pre-Olympic Canada, where it was like not a lot of work, just make saves at the right time.
Could you more? Now getting back to the game tonight. Josh Norris, his return is pretty imminent. Obviously, a guy who's dealt with a ton of injuries. I genuinely feel bad for the guy because when he's been healthy for us, he's been fantastic, like point plus per game. Do you think a guy like Jarmo, who is not afraid to be aggressive, or even so not afraid to stand put, do you see him making any more significant additions to this roster? Because sometimes you just don't want to mess with what's working, right? But you see the struggles with the power play. They get absolutely dominated almost on a nightly basis in the faceoff circle. Like, what is a move that you could see a guy like Jarmo Kekalainen making at this deadline?
Well, I think the biggest elephant in the room would be Alex Tuch, right? Like first off and foremost, like that contract is looming, and where does he stay? Does he go? Like, does he just become a rental player at this point if you're trying to push for the playoffs? Because I do think you need to keep him, right? For me, the X factors obviously in this lineup, you look at Tage Thompson and Rasmus Dahlin. Like Tage Thompson is all over this game. Like it's world class what he can do through the neutral zone. He reminds me of like playing when Jack Eichel was there, right? Like just a player that when he gets the puck in the defensive zone with speed, you almost know an offensive threat is coming. So what I would love to see is them beef up a little bit more down the lineup, right? To try to get him a little bit of a better matchup, or almost create if you could find someone to fit better on that third line, in my personal opinion, then they become more of a threat. And what do we see every single time come playoff time? Your superstars are going to be your superstars. It's like the depth of the team pushes you over the top, right? Like I think year in, year out, we see it, right? Look at what Brad Marchand did last year. And I don't know what the piece is, because I truly think that if you're Buffalo at this point, it's trending in the right direction. And you really don't want to mortgage your future based on just trying to win a cup this year. Like getting in is obviously awesome. It's a step in the right direction, but you don't want to go trade away picks and leverage for someone who's going to be shit in a few years and have a bunch of money on their contract. So I think if you could get somebody out without a lot of term, maybe, move some bodies out, I think that's the way you make this team better while not really hurting the future.
Last one for me. I think everybody's heard what Rasmus Dahlin has went through this season with his wife and the news of the loss of his baby. You played with him his first 3 seasons in the NHL. Seeing him as a rookie, as he was cutting his teeth in the league, to now being the captain of the Sabres, and his leadership and his skill not even being questioned at this moment. What can you speak to him about? What can you speak about him as a teammate that shows and can make the rest of us understand how he's possibly gotten through a time like this to still lead this team and play as well as he has?
Because he cares more than like most guys I've ever played with too. Like he just has this demeanor to him where he wants to win, and he takes everything personal. And I feel like I was there dealing with it when he first was taking it on the chin, right? Like we all did, right? Like it was tough times, right? I feel like from the outside looking in, we're all competitors. We want to win. You want to do better. But Rasmus cared so much. And I think that's where, being a first overall pick and on a team that we didn't have a ton of leadership, right? We had guys in the room trying to, but like then you had another core of guys that were pulling in the opposite direction. And Rasmus was kind of, figuring out who he was as an athlete and who he was as a professional. So to see how far he's grown and turning into the man that he is and the player and even just the competitor, right? Like he is a mean mother out there and I love it.
Yeah.
I love that side of his game too, right? Like on top of all the skill and savviness he has, he's a competitor too. Like similar, I love Zach Benson tonight too, even on the net front screen goal where he saves it, then he gives Matheson a shoulder after. That's like the identity you want to have. You want to have like, and I think Rasmus embodies that as a Sabre, is like, if you're going to come into Buffalo now at this point, it's going to be a hard game. And I think that's something that I understand a lot why when I was there and we played with, Jack and Em and all these stars where it was the inconsistency of effort that probably made more people upset than results at times, where if you know that every night your team's going to put it out there, you can like walk away being like, hey, we lost that game, but like you can tell they were going. And I think that's what Rasmus really embodies of the Buffalo Sabres, in my opinion.
When you look back at the team, obviously before this 10-game winning streak, you were the goaltender for the last Sabres 10-game winning streak. Like, what are the major differences you've seen between that team and this team? Because that was one question I definitely wanted to ask, because like that team you played on, that was uber talented, but like you just mentioned, like there wasn't a ton of leadership in that room. Do you see that being a significant difference, or were there other differences too?
Yeah, I think we were playing with fire more when we were there too, right? I don't think we were winning games by committee. That was where I think Jeff Skinner, every time he touched the puck, it went in the net too, right? Like we were getting a lot of puck luck. I was playing really well at the time. We were creating our own, and it wasn't like quality of play. I think at times it was just like run and gun, where I think this is a more consistent team. And I think this is a team that plays with so much speed and comes at you. They create a lot more. And I think that's something that is so important when you look at this squad. Even like for Alex Lyon tonight, like I don't know what the stat line ended up with. I think he had 30 shots or so, but it wasn't like high danger chances, right? Like, and I think that's something that's important, is their D has stepped up. And these are young guys, right? I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say what, like Rasmus and Byram are 25, Powers 23, Samuelson's 24. Like they're all under, like your top 4 D are 25 and under is insane. Like vice versa, you look at the Leafs, all their D are like 33 to 31 years old. Like this is a big difference in maturity and the way they defend. And that's why I think this team is a much more sustainable group than like the group that we played in front of.
Yeah. And I guess really quickly, I think that even looking at that matchup tonight, the two youngest teams in the NHL, both like at the top of the Atlantic, in terms of their ceiling, and especially with the Sabres, like at least the fans have been talking about not only making the playoffs, but winning a round or two. Do you think with the way that this team is playing in the past month, do you think that's actually realistic, or are they quite not there yet and they'll still be building for the future for potentially next season actually making a run?
Well, I think you never stop building for the future, right? Like that's kind of like where the Sabres are at, I think, with their roster construction. But then like, if you're thinking big picture of like, okay, like obviously Jarmo Kekalainen has to be living the moment, right? Yes. Analyzing what we have for depth, what we have for contracts, where is this team going? But then there's also the elephant in the room that like, it's been 14 years since you've been in the playoffs, right? So like throw all the anything present out the window. And if this is a chance to get in and make a little noise, you got to do it, right? And again, I think you have to strategically do that without ruining your future, because the future is really bright in Buffalo. But I think like you get a chance to get in, like the East is flipped right now, right? Like if you look at the standings, there's 5 teams out of the playoffs that were in the playoffs as of last year. And that's being the defending champions, right? The Devils are out. Washington is out. Ottawa is out. Like this is like a big change of like passing of the guard, it feels like. And it feels like things are just widening more and more as it goes too, right? Because now you're looking at Columbus won today, they've been a good story, but they're 6 points back. Columbia and Washington are 6 points back. And then post Olympic break, what do you got? Like just over 20 games.
Yep.
I think that's going to be really huge. So I think they're headed in the right direction, and if you're going to get in, try to get greedy.
Yeah. And like you kind of have two like 2 trade deadlines, right? You have the Olympic roster freeze. You have the Olympics. You get that like 2-week break. And then you have the legitimate NHL trade deadline. Come March or whatever date it is in March, like you're going to have a lot of teams in the division making moves. I think, depending how the next like week or so goes for Toronto, might dictate if they're going to be sellers, like true sellers, the deadline, which I think they should be, honestly. They have to figure out their goaltending situation, and there's other teams too in the East, and it's just so tight, and kind of teams waiting to see what happens with Panarin, and all the other names that are going to be out there. Obviously, the Rangers are, choosing not to play him until the Olympics for asset management. I just think like when it comes to Jarmo Kekalainen, like we already have like one of the youngest teams in the NHL. Like when Josh Norris comes back, like it's probably. I mean, who would you say is going to get set down, Earl? Do you think it's Hellenius?
Probably.
I would imagine so. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you have a lot of youth in your organization as it is. So, I mean, I'm not saying, take a home run swing, but I don't see why they couldn't add to that top six and maybe find another like third pairing defenseman to, pair with Timmins when he gets back.
Yeah, someone like that too, to add to that, add a little depth, add a little grit. And I think there will be availability now, because the other side of it too is if like you're a few of these teams, when I look at the standings, right? I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but this is something that and I talk a lot on our show, is like, like where you're at, would you even want to try to push to get to like if you're New York, obviously, and then like Winnipeg's one that's been playing better as of late, St. Louis, where they're at, you're almost better to just stay where you are and get a better lottery pick. Because if you start to push and then you're in the meaty middle, like you look at Calgary last year, like what was that for? Like you push last year, you get yourself just outside of the wild card spot, and you're better to get a pick, right? Especially the way the league is now. Like it's more of a developmental league. If you have guys on expiring contracts, move them out, gain pieces, because I feel like a team like Buffalo would be a worthy team to grab a guy and add a little depth. I know there's some big names always floating around with Buffalo. I've heard Robert Thomas float around a few times. Depends on where they fit, right, and what you see for the future. But I don't see why you wouldn't at this point. And I think the Leafs are going to be sellers. Truthfully, I just think there's a few contracts there that are like no-brainers for them to try to get off of.
I think we briefly talked about Tuck, but I've been looking at it a lot recently, the concept of him being like an own rental, right?
Yeah.
Like I think it's as potentially important as ever for him to be not only be in the locker room, but be there for a playoff run and be there in the playoffs this upcoming season, and then potentially lose him for nothing. Do you think it's worth not getting a deal done, not necessarily signing him for the future, but having him there in the room for this, like you said, the elephant in the room, to break this 14-year drought?
Well, yeah, and again, I don't think you necessarily lose them for nothing in a sense, because you're still getting cap space, right? Like you're still going to get that cap space for somebody else. I think I don't know. You guys probably watch the American feed, right? You guys are stateside.
I was on Sportsnet tonight.
Yeah, so I'm on Sportsnet. I don't know if you saw that topic they were talking about tonight, where they're talking about Josh Doan, about how he changed his stick. He started with his stick and he switched over to a stick from CCM, and that was because he needed more stiffness because he's playing more of a net front position. And it was Jason Zucker that told him that. And I think these are little tidbits of like information that we don't see if you don't play the game and you're not like behind the scenes of like how much experience and value there is of being a veteran. And that's that, to your point alone there, right? You're talking about Alex Tuck. You're talking about Duane. You're talking about bringing in someone that's a veteran to be there in the room to help guide the ship a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like maybe you go get somebody like an older guy that's won a cup or he's been around, and maybe he's not as impactful on the ice, but in the room, there's like so much value. Like I think back to like my career, and like I got another contract and I was like done when I hurt my ankle with Buffalo, and then I ended up getting a job with Arizona. I got traded to Toronto, and like in Arizona, I was not even close to healthy. Like I was done. My career was over from my injury, and Bill Armstrong would like bring me on road trips and bring me everywhere, do everything, because he wanted me to be around the guys, and not to act like I'm the end all be all by any means, but it's just an example of like, well, this guy's a pro, and these are what we want to learn. This is what you want to have around your players. And I think there is value to guys that you just can't see on a stat sheet at time. And I think tonight's point about the stick and Jason Zucker is a great point.
You could even like when we go back to last season during the end of the season presser, like Zucker was up there talking. One of his infamous quote was "Hope is a shitty strategy," but like he also talked a lot about Kulik, and then like I'm not sure if it was Kulik who spoke to the media about it, but like the effect that his like experience and just being next to him in the locker room and being playing on a line with him, how much it affected his game positively. And like, I love hearing stuff like that. And I was happy to see when they signed him to the extension. And I agree. I think you don't have to go out there, in my opinion, and take this big swing at the trade deadline. There's guys out there. I'm not saying this guy because his name's, he's a former Sabre. His name's been out there, like Ryan O'Reilly, right? Like a guy who's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, but like his impact, especially in that middle six is going to like be, astronomical.
He would help with face-offs, that's for sure. This team can't win a face-off.
I know. Oh, and you need it, right? You need like, as you look at some of the guys moving out, and I just think that like it's got to be the right fit because you are built well for the future, right? Like up front.
Oh my God.
I think the biggest elephant in the room in this lineup is going to be the health of Josh Norris, right? Like he is such an impactful player, but like he's got to be healthy, right? And this is like the risk reward of this trade, right? He's a 26-year-old. It's his shoulder, right? Doesn't he have like a horrible shoulder?
Well, right now it's his rib. You got cross-checked in the ribs.
Yeah, but like the chronic injury that he
that shoulder, yes.
Or was his shoulder for sure.
Right. So it's like you live and die by that trade in a sense, right? But like it could be the one that like maybe pushes them over the top in 2-3 years when they are legitimate more cup contenders if he does stay healthy, because that number is still not horrible, right? And then like the Tage Thompson deal, like might be the best contract of all time. Like, you know what I mean? Like at this point, what he keeps producing, making just over $7 million, and the cap's not going anywhere. And I think that's like the most important factor here that people, I don't even know if they understand it, or like if you can get a guy signed now, like free agency is going to be a different animal this year, like a totally different animal compared to years past, because of look at all the big names already off the board. Like so many guys already signed their big ticket. Cause then like think as a player, it's like risk reward in the sense of like, okay, so I can play out the season and maybe make 12 million instead of 10. I think that, like going and hoping to try to get guys in free agency pre-trading for them at the deadline might be risky because guys are going to demand an arm and a leg, and you're going to have a bunch of teams that are at the bottom with tons of cap space willing to spend on a player that can score 30.
You kind of bring up, earlier, like the Sabres teams you played on, you dealt with Kevin Adams, obviously. Do you think, obviously, him probably sitting at home on his couch watching this team perform, it's probably got to be, he's got to be pretty bitter about it. But at the same time, do you think it's right to say that players will perform? I want to say better for a different GM. Obviously, this was a shot in the arm for them, like that announcement that he would be fired. But like, the first thing that Tage said that Jarmo did when he came into the locker room, and I heard this from actually somebody else too, was he didn't even like introduce himself. Dude, I mean, they knew who he was, but like, he pretty much said, I have an open door policy. If you don't want to be here, come on in. We'll make it happen. And if I feel that you're not performing to the standard I expect, then you're gone and nobody's safe. Like, do you think like having that be the first conversation and know you're going to have that type of consequence and that type of accountability, gave these guys a jolt and sent them off on this streak that they've been on now for what seems like 2 months, and just, looking just completely night and day different team?
Yeah, I do think it holds water, right? Like it shouldn't have to get to that point, right? Like you talk about really, really good teams, right? And I feel like a quote that John Cooper talks about a lot is, I don't even coach this team. I just go in, tell them the lines, and the room kind of polices itself. But it didn't start there, right? It's got to start somewhere. It's got to start from someone that is like, they don't have to be your friend. They have to be a leader. And I think that's what Jarmo Kekalainen did at that point, is kind of set the table where like, we believe in this group, but if you don't want to be here, like this is the way it's going to be. So it just goes to show you how powerful like this is. Cause like what really changed since Kevin Adams got fired? Like nothing, right? On paper. So it just goes to show you that it is like such a, and the parity in this league is so tight and so close. So I think that is an important factor. You need someone that you respect, and in a sense, and he's in a position where you kind of have to fear him. Like you kind of want to be like, I remember playing for a few GMs where you're like, man, I don't even want to run into this guy. Cause I'm like, and then as I got older in my career, you become more of a veteran and you like start to understand the business of it. And like, you're more self-aware and self-confident in that situation. But like, if this is a way to inspire you, that is important. And I think you can use that for leverage for this team. And I think that's what he's doing here.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about one of, I think, the greatest pieces of content in Buffalo Sabres history, the Trey White Goalie Academy. We reference it all the time. It's come back up recently because he's back with the Bills, obviously, and he played so well this season. But what was that like, making that skit? And I think it's held so much staying power amongst the zeitgeist of Sabres fans, and I think it'll continue to. But every time I go back and watch it, I see a really tight-knit group, and I see something that was like, it seemed so unbelievably fun at the time. If you could just talk about it just a little bit. Yeah,
it was sweet. It was awesome. I don't know who actually came up with the idea. I'd assume it's our Sabres media group and PR people. And because he was at the game, right? The initial, I think it was a home opener, and I was playing, and they're like, "Who's your favorite player?" And he's like, "Sutton." It's that Sutton out there. Like, I got my name completely wrong, which is, I've been called way worse, trust me. So I thought it was funny, and then they had this idea, so they put it together, and it was so well scripted and so funny. And I think the clip of Linus in it being like, I'm definitely from Louisiana, is like so funny. So I think it was a good mix, and I think something for us as players being involved with the Bills and with the Sabres is such a unique situation. Like, to this day, I remember meeting Trey White, and then another time Josh Allen being at a game, and this was before Josh Allen was like a household name. Right. And I remember being in the locker room after a game, and someone was like, "Oh, there's a guy from the Bills here. Like, can someone go out and say hi?" So I went and said hi. Like, I don't know how obviously our time in Buffalo didn't go well for me, didn't go well for our team. And but I was always like, wore it on my sleeve. Like, I tried to be genuine, like who I was. So I went out and talked to Josh Allen. It was just like this conversation. He's such a down to earth guy. And then he goes on to be this mega star. So I feel like I'm always tied to the Buffalo Sabres and to obviously the Buffalo Sabres. My daughter was born there, and I'm grateful forever for Terry Pagula and the management. But then to the Bills, like, it's like part of like who I am, and I love it so much. So I feel like that whole Trey White Goalie Academy and thing really made a great crossover between the two organizations that Terry owns.
There's men's leagues teams like all over Western New York named after the Trey White Goalie Academy.
Really?
The Jersey. Oh yeah.
It's a huge thing. Like, it really is.
I'll say that, and I'll say this too. Like, when I was playing before I jacked up my leg last February, one of the dirtiest teams in our league. Straight up, one of the dirtiest teams in our league. Trey White boys. Whenever you play the Trey White Goalie Academy, you just know you're going to be in for one. And I'm friends with a couple of guys on that team. Shout out Casey Walters, but they were they were always a tough game. I'll put it that way. I won't say dirty, say it's a tough game, because then when I do finally get back on the ice, I don't want a couple of them to hear this, and then all of a sudden I get run. Some guys just don't put the yearbook away. Yeah, but are you still skating at all? Are you still playing?
So I play beer league. I'm a D-man now, though. No goalie. I haven't put
the same thing in roller hockey.
Pardon?
I do the same thing in roller hockey. I don't play any goalie in roller.
Yeah, no, I'm a D-man. I'm a pretty decent player. People are always like surprised. They like see me play, and they're like, "Oh, you're pretty good." I'm like, "Yeah, well, my whole life I was on the rink." I just honestly don't even have the drive to go in net. I think the last time I put the gear on, I was in Toronto. I retired with the Leafs, and I never played. I was just kind of a practice dummy. But yeah, that's it. I think the next time I'll go in net will be like a father-son game, where they you play against your kids or something. It'll be like a fun attraction. But other than that, I have no drive to be in net anymore at all.
Like I said, all the angles, right? That's why you can play good D. You know what holes to fill, what gaps to take. I soak in pucks when I play D. Like, I eat them, dude. People think I'm nuts. Like, dude, this is roller hockey. What are you doing? Why are you stepping for the shots? Like, whatever.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I know I'm similar. I think I see the game better from there. I've tried to play forward. I feel like a lost puppy out there. I'm just like doing circles, no clue where to go. Where like D, I find is a little more structure, right? You're going to get to the blue line. You're going to work your way back. And I handled the puck a lot when I played. So I felt like seeing the passes and lanes kind of came to me naturally.
Well, that's awesome. I really appreciate you joining us, Carter.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on.
Super enlightening. And if this team keeps it going, I think we'll have to have you on later in the season.
Yeah, yeah.
Anytime you want.
I'm sure I'll probably catch some flack that they lost tonight and I was coming on the show, but
no, it's not you.
No,
it's
you
not
won't,
you,
man. They're gonna lose.
I'm just kidding.
It was,
Not
it was
gonna
all
win
those
every
Habs
game, man,
fans
even
in the
seems
building
like it.
is what it was.
I know. I actually was
crowd.
I actually was disappointed to see that it was so many Montreal fans. Like
I think they get them before the season, right? Like
that's what it is. They get them before when that. And same thing with Toronto. That's why like even when the team is good, it seems like the building is still like nothing's changed. It's because when single game tickets go on sale, they buy them like day of. When they know the schedule, they buy them day of. So like I'll say this, like this isn't season ticket holders. I mean, a couple maybe sure, but this is more them just getting their the single game tickets right when they become available. And obviously coming into the season, like we didn't know what to expect given the roster. Of course.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I didn't realize that because I've played in it, right? I remember a few times playing Toronto, I'd like skate out for warm-ups and I'd get booed. I'd be like, oh God.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But there's a few times I've skated off after a period and got booed too, but I'm used to it either way. So that's okay though. That's part of the business. And at least moving forward, this is going to be a good team. And I think the playoffs are something that are like realistic and they can make some noise here.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. And like I said, you're more than welcome on any time you're available, man. This is some solid insight. And I'd say one of our better post-game shows this season.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you popping on. That was and tell Lazzy I said thanks and that he sucks.
Yeah, I will. I'll let him know he sucks for sure.
See you, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks again. Let me bring it out here. Oh. Yeah, there we go. Thanks again to Carter Hutton for popping in with us. And I'll hang up and listen.
Legend.
Oh my God, man! Like I always liked Carter Hutton.
He referenced it a few times. Obviously, yeah, those teams weren't necessarily great, and I think he started off obviously really hot in that 2018 season. But I think that he was always great in the media. He was always like in the same way that Alex Lyon, and he's very insightful. He's very well spoken, and I think that he was definitely really good in the room and guys really respected him. And yeah, maybe at the end of his career, but I don't think it was necessarily on him that those teams didn't work out the way that many of us would have liked them to.
No, definitely not, man. He even referenced the leadership. It's like we didn't have the leadership that we needed in that locker room. And, you know, obviously you're not going to, you know, you can assume who he's talking about, but like, yeah, like, you know, guys who were probably given a letter way too early in their career, regardless of how you thought the exit went with Jack. I mean, you have to imagine like that's probably one of the guys that's not leading the way. Evander Kane, I'm pretty sure was still on that team, right? Like he definitely wasn't a leader. If anything, I think from everything I've heard about that guy and now everything you've seen, you know, post his Buffalo career, the guy wasn't a role model or a guy that you could rely on to be a leader. Like, and then, you know, Ryan O'Reilly lost his love for the game. And then we don't have to go down that road.
Ran into a Tim Hortons.
Just the line in, just complaining and talking about how much of a shitty defenseman he is in post game.
If O'Reilly somehow comes back, I will never bring up the Tim Hortons thing ever again.
Oh, that's one question I wish we could ask a guy like Carter Hutton. Like, you know, I'm not sure if he was on the team when that happened.
No, I don't think so. No, because he was there. His first year was Tage's first year, so he was there after all of that.
Oh man, I would have loved to have been like in that team group chat when that happened. Like to see, hey, did you guys see this?
I know, but like on a serious note, though, like the faceoffs were 40-17 tonight.
Awful.
Like, and the guys were getting thrown out of the circle. I think the refs were particularly strict on that tonight. But that has been – I'd like to look up the faceoffs of every game this season and what the percentages are, but it is woefully bad. And they need – I really do believe this. They need to get – either someone needs to get better or they need to bring someone in that can win draws consistently, whether that's O'Reilly or Trocheck or anyone else. Like obviously Norris was pretty good at it, and him being out has been a big loss, but he's only played 17 games. So it's not like he's had a huge impact regardless from a faceoff perspective. I would say that's a top priority. I really do. It's getting really, really bad.
I wish I would have seen this quote while we still had Hutton. Rasmus Dahlin on the atmosphere in Buffalo tonight, which featured a heavy dose of Canadiens fans. I really, really appreciate the fans that came out, but I don't want to see that many red in the future.
Yeah, I think
Love that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that's the thing, though. Like, Canadiens fans are known for being one of the most loyal fan bases. They're known for being extremely passionate. I think seeing a game in Montreal is kind of a bucket list thing for not only hockey fans, but for sports fans. So they're going to travel. It's relatively close. As soon as the schedule comes out, they're going to buy up all the games. This is what they do. Unless you're not selling to Canadian addresses as a team, it's going to be tough to prevent. But I think as the momentum continues and the team continues to win and be on this type of streak that they are, it is going to get less and less. I really do believe that.
Did you know that the Truck O'Reilly totaled in the Tim Hortons accident was a 1951 Chevy? I remember it was a classic car.
I did not know that, but that makes the story even better.
What makes the story even better is the fact that he walked away from it like people weren't gonna know it was him.
I don't want to slander it. Was he drunk?
He had to have been.
He
had to have been.
I gotta read. I
remember Terry probably made that all go away because he maybe did community service. I don't know. I
gotta read the articles again. It's been a while.
Maybe somebody in the chat knows the details on that. Duane, what's your opinion of the power play today? It was awful. It was awful.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously not good enough, but I do think that whenever you can get a power play goal, that's great, right? And they did. And also, I know it doesn't count as a power play goal. They said it on the Sportsnet broadcast that it was, but the 6-on-4 situation that Power got his goal, I think they moved it around in a way that was indicative of what a good power play could be. They had good movement, pretty good creativity, and they eventually got it to a spot where not only Benson was in front of the net causing chaos, Dobich physically pushed him out of the way, which eventually Power got it past him. But I think that they were better in a man advantage situation than they normally are. So I think that was at least positive. But yeah, it's got to be more consistent, especially with the amount of talent.
I just feel like they passed up way too many opportunities. I mean, this is just one example, but Zucker had the puck right in front of the goal line, a couple feet out. And he's trying to wait for somebody to open up, right? He's waiting. Nobody's moving their feet. And you could tell at that point, as a goalie, throw it at my feet. Throw it at my feet. Look off. And just throw it at my feet and hope for like Josh Norris scored that way. I want to say Zach Benson may have even scored that way. It might have been Benson. But the worst thing that could happen in that situation, in my opinion, because those are just very tough rebounds to control, is it pops up in the middle. I don't know, man. I just feel like too many opportunities just you pass up on trying to force a pass and waiting for something to open up. Where in my opinion, again, everybody knows, you said it a couple shows ago, everybody knows what the play is here. Get it to Tage. And they don't really have a plan B. They don't. I don't know what it is. And then the same breakout, they're not fooling anybody. Nobody is fooled by the drop pass for the breakout. Nobody. And every single time you have three to four forwards, or three to four guys sitting there at the blue line ready to stop it. Every single time.
Yeah, I mean, the Canadiens did it themselves too. So I don't necessarily think it's just a Sabres thing. That's just become a pretty popular power play break-in over the past few years in the NHL. And I think there are better ways to do it. Obviously not doing it every single time so that it's predictable, but you got to have space. And ideally you'll have a controlled zone entry where you don't necessarily have to dump in the puck and risk the Canadiens or whoever getting it and then just shooting it right down the ice. Taking possession into the zone and keeping it is ideally what you want. And if you've got four guys right at the blue line, that's not going to happen. So I think, they got to be a little bit more creative. And I think we know this, right? Seth Appert has gotten a lot of flack, and I think it's been kind of muted over the past month and a half because the team's been winning and they've been doing so well, but the power play is still in the bottom half of the league.
Yeah.
And it continues to be there. It's going to be a problem, especially if they lose a few here and get out of the playoff race.
And we talk about playoffs, the whistles go away in playoffs, but when you get an opportunity, That's why it's so much more important in the playoffs than ever. Like, because you might only get one penalty total in an entire hockey game in the playoffs. So when you get the opportunity, you have to find a way to cash in.
Yeah, and thankfully they've built a bit of a cushion here. 67 points in the first wild card spot with a game in hand on the Bruins. Have a game in hand on the Canadiens as well. So depending on how they do, let's say they win on Monday and Tuesday, they could get right back into that third spot in the Atlantic. And then the Blue Jackets are the first team outside of the wild card, and they have 61 points with the same amount as the Sabres. So thankfully, this streak has given them a little bit of a cushion, but especially in these 3 games leading into the Olympic break, you'd like to keep that cushion. You'd like to stay in a good position. And I think they know that. I think they're very well aware of where they are in the standings. And I remember Lindy, especially, I think it was at one point last season, he posted the standings in the locker room. So they're very well aware. And I think they know what they need to do in these final 3 before the break.
Before we get to your final thoughts, I just want to kick it back to our sponsors because I'm not even sure. According to the chat, we lost signal there. May not even heard our ad reads, so we got to hit that again. Shout out again to Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room with over 300 beers to choose from at 7 different Western New York locations. If you need to grab a beer, get the Fatty Beer, live music, trivia, entertainment. They have it all over at Fatty Beer. My favorite place to go watch a Sabres game at the Lancaster location specifically, but they have a downtown location too. If you need a pregame beer, you're going to the game, check out Fatty Beer over on Genesee. And also shout out to Extreme Discount Mattress with Western New York's finest selection of mattresses and adjustable beds featuring cool gel memory foam, 2-sided mattresses, Tele latex, organic mattresses, Chatham & Wells, and of course Scott & Living, all for 1/3 to 1/2 the supposed sale prices anywhere. So stop in their 7 locations across Western New York or check out their website, extrememattress.com. That is Extreme with an X. If you're looking for even more savings, check out their new closeout center at 1625 Walden Avenue in Cheektowaga with to 80% off their already low prices. Save a fortune on one-of-a-kinds, closeouts, floor samples. You get a quality mattress for literally pennies on the dollar. Extreme Discount Mattress. We sell mattresses for less, a lot less. And remember, if you mentioned that you're a fan of Two Goalies One Mike, they give you a free mattress protector with any purchase of a mattress. So please go support another local business, support our podcast, support them so, we can pay them back for all of their generosity. So appreciate it. Hurls, your final thoughts.
Obviously tough game. I think they largely, it's hard to say. They had a really good second period. I think obviously the Canadiens won the third. First could be a toss up, but it's a good team. The 2 youngest teams in the NHL, both very much in contention in the Eastern Conference playoff race. These are the types of games that you're going to need to win, not only to get to the playoffs, but in the playoffs. It was a playoff type atmosphere. Obviously, a lot of Canadiens fans in the building. I would hope that the Sabres were at least somewhat motivated by that. And I think that hopefully will be a little bit less moving forward. But yeah, I think the Canadiens were likely motivated by the fact that they had lost twice to this team in the past 2 weeks. And that would have been a really tough pill for them to swallow if they had lost another one. And I think it was a very winnable game. But at the end of the day, face-offs, the lack of power play production consistently, and net front coverage, obviously, on those 2 goals in the third period eventually did them in. But thankfully, they've played well enough over the past 2 months that they're in a pretty good position. And as we just said, those final 3 games leading into the Olympic break, 2 pretty tough ones down in Florida. They haven't done too well on that southern swing in recent seasons, but I think this team is built a little bit differently, that hopefully they'll be able to succeed. And then that final home game on Thursday against the Penguins, and then we'll see our guys over in Milan. But not a horrible game. I think it was definitely winnable, but it happens, and we move on and we march on, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agreed. I know from Josh, the defense tired in the third is a big part of the Sabres offense. High amount of time on ice is catching up to them. Yarno needs to make a trade for trustworthy bottom 6 defenseman ASAP, in my opinion. I do tend to agree with that because, I assume at some point after the Olympic break, you'll have Connor Timmins back, and I'm assuming that you're going to send Zach Metza back to Rochester, and Jacob Bryson still will be your 7th man. So, you probably want to bring in somebody that can compare with Timmins once he's back. like you said earlier, Montreal's probably playing a little bit chip, beat them the 2 games before. One of my coaches growing up, Coach Joe, Mr. Castrino, used to say all the time, because in our division games we play these teams 4 or 5 times a season. One of the most difficult things to do is beat a team 3 times in a row. Like, you beat them once, you beat them second time, and then things just start to boil over in that third game. It becomes very difficult, and I tend to agree that I think that played a part in this tonight too. I think Montreal, given the home-like atmosphere here in Buffalo, they definitely thrived a little bit off that, and they buried our mistakes. No doubt about it, Hurls.
Yeah. So you can wipe this one off the shoulder, head down to Florida, and play 2 good games against really 2 good teams. And I think they're more than capable of that. They've shown that they are over the past 2 months. And I think hopefully we'll get 3 good games leading into the break here.
Timeline for Norris, I think they even said during the pregame show that he could be available next week. Don't quote me on that, but they interviewed Josh, who definitely sounded frustrated, like he wanted to be out there tonight. I think they kind of insinuated as early as next week, which is good news. Very good news.
Good news, but I've also seen speculation that why not just wait?
Let him sit out for
wait until
which I agree.
After Milan, so he can get fully healthy and not risk re-injuring it.
They actually posed that question to him, and he goes, I'm going to play when I feel like I'm ready. And that's
the thing, though. Like, if he's 100% cleared and it was the type of injury that was able to heal in this time frame or even more, and he's ready for these 3 games, send him out, right? Like, you want your best players on the ice. But if there's even a slight risk that it's not completely 100%, I would sit him and have him back at the end of February.
I agree. I definitely agree. Great time tonight with former Sabres goalie Carter Hutton. You actually find him on Twitter at Carter Hutton 4. I believe he's at Huts40 on Instagram. Great follow. And obviously a fantastic guest. I can't wait to have him on again, Hurls. And if you've enjoyed this podcast and if we're audio only, we are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your audio podcasts. If you're following along on Twitter, you can find myself at Duane S39. You can find my co-host here at CHurls13. You can find the podcast at 2 Goalies 1 Mic. That goes for Instagram as well. And most importantly, I see a lot of you are watching on YouTube. So please hammer that like button. If you aren't subscribed already, press subscribe, press the little bell icon so you go live. Really appreciate it. We will talk to you later. And as always, go Sabres. Talk to you later.